Hello everyone and welcome back to the ESO show. This is episode 3 and today's introduction is going to be rather short because we're going to be diving right into the developer question of the week. So here we go.
Hi, my name is James Lau. I'm a lead designer on The Elder Scrolls Online, and here's your question of the week. If you've played any of the Elder Scrolls titles, you've probably come across a few powerful artifacts in your adventures, such as Azura's Star or the Staff of Magnus. If you were to design your own artifact, what would you call it, and what powers would it have?
Now before I go ahead and answer the developer question of the week, I would just like to thank Elder Scrolls Online for tweeting out my video from last week. They actually did, and I'll post a tweet here on the screen. They posted a tweet saying great show about episode 2 of the ESO show, and that's awesome. That's so cool that they noticed that. And I know that I'm sure all the Twitter questions and interaction that they've gotten from you Swifters has helped that as well. So just wanted to thank them for that. All right, so the question was, if you could design your own artifact, what would you call it and what powers would it have? Now, this is an interesting question because there are a lot of awesome artifacts and different things in the Elder Scrolls universe. But if I were to design one myself, I'm going to have to draw on a previous experience that I had with Morrowind. When I first played Morrowind, after I beat the game, I went ahead and started using console commands, as I'm sure everyone did, to cheat everything. You can make your speed like 1000 and your jump like 5000, and it's insane. You can jump across the entire world in a matter of seconds. It's ridiculous. You could do this to any stat within Morrowind. I think you can still do that even within something like Skyrim. I did this and I ended up creating or giving myself the highest enchantment level. I think it was like enchantment level 1000, so it was beyond what you could actually obtain in the game, which I think 100 was the max. I took this ring, a very high-end ring, and I enchanted it with 2 spells, both a fire spell and an ice spell, and I made it like shoot out. The way Morrowind enchanting worked was it was a little bit different. You could basically set your the destruction level, the radius that it would sort of blow up at, but I called it the hot and cold ring. And the reason for that, there was really no better thing to call it other than that, and it basically just shot out this fireball mixed with a like ice looking freaking snowflake thing, and it would just decimate everything. Guards would come chasing after me and I would just fire this thing off once in the general area of them, and it would just completely obliterate them because the amount of damage that it did was insane. That is what I would create. It'd be called the hot and cold ring, and it would just do massive destruction. So what would you guys create? What would you name it, and what kind of powers would you give it? All right, so there wasn't that much news this week. It was a pretty light news week in the world of the Elder Scrolls Online. However, I do have the Twitter questions from just general Twitter that were answered by TES Online. So let's go ahead and get into those today. And the first question comes from Connor Longsword, who is a Swifter. He used the appropriate hashtag, which is awesome, who says, at TES Online, will Nords be able to use the Thu'um? If so, wouldn't it be overpowered? Elder Scrolls Online replies, players won't be able to learn the Thu'um, as shouts are considered a legend out of the distant past in Elder Scrolls Online. So if you guys know Elder Scrolls Online, I believe it takes place 1,000 years before Skyrim. The events in Skyrim are obviously based around Dragonborn, who has the ability to learn shouts very quickly. Now, as I understand it within the Elder Scrolls lore and the universe there, that normal people can learn shouts, but it would take a lifetime to learn basically just one section of one shout. There won't be any shouts or Thu'ums within the Elder Scrolls Online. The next question comes from The Phoenix, or at Clemens Shortest, who says, at TES Online, will ESO have a collector's edition like Skyrim, Oblivion, and Morrowind, featuring collectibles / a concept art book? Elder Scrolls Online says, we haven't announced any special editions of ESO thus far. If we do, it's likely something we will unveil closer to launch. I do have the Skyrim Collector's Edition, the art book, and that was really awesome. It was really cool to sort of, you know, go back through that and sort of see the progress of the game, how it sort of started out. You know, definitely, I think that's something that they should do personally. I think if they don't, I don't know, I think that's kind of it's something that they may or may not do on the launch, but they definitely should do at some point in the game, like the length of that game's cycle. And relevance, because I think that's very important for your hardcore fans to be able to get something like that. All right, this next question actually was broken into 2 tweets because it was so long. So this one comes from Cameron Vandenhoff, who says, I've read that vampires / werewolves won't be in-game at launch. When they are in-game, will there be an option to pick either at character creation, role-playing as having been a vampire / werewolf before the game started, or is it only after character creation? Elder Scrolls Online returns and says, we have yet to go into detail, but we can confirm that there will be vampire and werewolf skill lines in ESO. So this is something really cool, and I did a little bit of digging on this. There is no definitive answer yet on how those storylines will be integrated within your playing experience of Elder Scrolls Online. Some people are speculating, I think this is really awesome, that vampirism and the I forget what the it starts with an L, the virus that gives you the ability to become a werewolf, that those may in fact be transmitted between players and player interaction within the Elder Scrolls Online, sort of as if you talk to this person, well, now you're a vampire, and that would start your quest line into sort of curing yourself from that disease, or however you want to pursue that. Maybe you want to be a vampire the whole time, or maybe you want to be a werewolf the whole time. But I think that if that is the case, and that of course right now is speculation by certain people out there, player interaction and not an NPC you're going to contract vampirism. That of course leads to the question, you know, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Is there one NPC out there that has that gives it to one player and then he spreads it to his friend, or it runs through a guild or something like that, sort of as a virus actually would? I don't know. You know, I don't know if it even is just someone, you know, within ESO's headquarters saying, hey, we want this player right here to be a vampire. He's been playing a lot. Let's see if he spreads it to all his friends and that just infects that way. I don't know. I'm assuming it will probably come from the world. If it is in fact transmittable through player interaction, I think that's really innovative, and that would be a lot of fun. I mean, if you've got a friend that's a vampire or a werewolf and you just don't want that, no, we're not playing today. You can you can stay away. I'm not gonna log on. No, I don't want that. All right, the next Twitter question comes from Sinjin Johnson, who says, at TES Online, if I play a sorcerer in ESO and want to focus on a damage dealing magic, can I also do some healing? And this one comes from a Swifter, which is awesome. Elder Scrolls Online says, the openness of the skill system will allow players to create a very versatile healer regardless of class choice. So that's awesome. So once again, going back on what I said a couple episodes ago about how they're allowing us as players, or will be allowing us as players, to basically create any sort of character you want. The class is, from what I've heard, the class is just a template, sort of a building block onto where you want to go with that character. So if you want to create sort of this Dragon Knight type character that's a heavy warrior, but you still want to be able to heal your friends and stuff, you can still do that. So I think that flexibility is really cool. And when it comes to PvP and just really anything, you don't know what you're going to get when you're fighting someone else. They could literally kind of be anything. They could have any skill line. So that makes things really, really interesting. All right, and the final question that was answered by TES Online that I chose for this week comes from Jack Zuek Bronner, who says, at TES Online, will you be able to do quest lines / be a part of the Dark Brotherhood or Thieves Guild? And Elder Scrolls Online answers, they say, the Thieves Guild and the Dark Brotherhood will be added to ESO after launch. We hope you'll stick around. So it doesn't look like ESO will be launching with that, knowing at least that they are going to be adding those two major quest lines within the Elder Scrolls universe and the Elder Scrolls Online as a game, I think is really awesome. I'm a little disappointed that they won't be there in the beginning. That may end up turning some people off, but you know, you have to kind of look at that the other way and say maybe that skill line, or not skill line, but maybe that quest line isn't quite ready yet, and they want to either polish that or put that out as an update so that the community sort of feels like they're continually getting content. Because the way I see it is, if you're paying a subscription, obviously they want you to feel like that subscription is worth it. And that subscription, if you're paying continually every month and you're getting the same exact experience, then for you as a consumer, it's not going to be worth it. But if they're rolling out new content, new quest lines, and so on and so forth, as you're paying your subscription fee, as a consumer, it's going to feel like you're getting a lot more for your money. So I would imagine that something as big as the Dark Brotherhood or as big as the Thieves Guild, those quest lines I'm sure will be rolled out later for that specific reason. So that, first of all, probably still developing it. And second of all, as you're playing and as you're paying that subscription, you're going to be getting new stuff. So once you've already played a bunch of hours and you've already completed a bunch of stuff, then you can go back and be like, oh cool, look, this new update added the Dark Brotherhood. Let me go do that. So that'll keep things really interesting. And I think it'll add a lot more longevity to the game as well. All right, so now we're gonna move on to the Twitter and Facebook questions from you Swifters, for me specifically. And the first one comes from at CJ, I'm just gonna say CJ, I don't even know, I'm gonna put that on the screen, there's too many letters and numbers there, who says, will weapon enchantments change depending on which race / faction you choose? Now, I don't really know the answer to this. I would imagine that probably no. I don't think that makes sense to me. And if that was something that they did put in the game, I don't know why they would, especially for, like I said in the beginning of this video, if I wanted to make an awesome ring, but I want to be a Nord, if Nords aren't good at enchanting or something like that, that may sort of hinder what I would like to do. So no, I don't think that based on race or faction, the enchantments will be different. I think it'll all come down to basically how high your enchanting skill is and what kind of, well, I would have said soul gems, but I know soul gems are used for reviving yourself and reviving other players. So maybe they have a double purpose. Maybe soul gems are used as well in enchanting and things like that. I'm honestly not sure, but I would imagine that depending on who you play or what faction, that enchanting will be probably the same across the board. All right, this next question comes from @CLucas31, who says, do you think this is the last Elder Scrolls game they will make? My answer to you is a simple one. No. For ZeniMax Online Studios, because they are developing Elder Scrolls Online, this may be the last Elder Scrolls game that they make, but in terms of Bethesda and ZeniMax Media Company, there's no way that they won't make another Elder Scrolls game. That would shock me. I mean, the franchise is way too big. I'm sure they make so much money off of the single player titles like Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim. I don't think Arena and Daggerfall, no, you can actually download this for free on their website. So no, they don't make any money on those anymore, but they still sell Morrowind, they still sell Oblivion, they still sell Skyrim, obviously, on Steam. And so I think it'll be a while still before we see The Elder Scrolls 6, whether, I don't know what province that's gonna take place in. I have absolutely no idea. Your guess is as good as mine there. I don't think we'll see that probably until like 2016 or 2017. That's probably my guess. My initial thoughts is they'll probably make another Fallout between, well, they're probably already working on it. And another Fallout game will probably come out from Bethesda directly between Skyrim and Elder Scrolls 6, whatever one that is. But I would be very surprised if they didn't make another Elder Scrolls game. All right, this next question comes from @BoomShakalaka4, sweet, who says, hi, I was wondering if we could go into actual Oblivion. I'm assuming he means if you can go into actual Oblivion in Elder Scrolls Online. So yes, their question is, can you go into Oblivion in Elder Scrolls Online? And the answer is yes. As far as I know right now, at least as the story takes place, is that Molag Bal, the Daedric Prince, is basically trying to merge his realm of Oblivion, which is Cold Harbor, with Tamriel and making it sort of one, I guess, coexisting hellish world. I'm assuming, based on that the game is centered around Molag Bal being the primary enemy, that yes, you will be able to go into his realm of Cold Harbor, which is in Oblivion. It's a plane of Oblivion. Now, as for all the other planes of Oblivion, I have no idea, but I'm sure that will happen as well. I'm sure that you'll be able to obtain, maybe Azura's Star, and you may have to go into Azura's plane of Oblivion, or some of the other Daedric princes as well, sort of as we've seen in games past. So yeah, like I said with the previous question, I would be surprised if that wasn't the case, but I'm pretty sure that it's traditional with ESO, or TES lore, at least, for the games to have a lot of quests that sort of enter into the planes of Oblivion. All right, so this question comes from @NiceGuy122, who says, do you think that ZeniMax will change the NPCs and people in old Morrowind cities, such as Mournhold? And the answer is pretty simply, yeah. So this is taking place 1,000 years before Skyrim. I forget how many years exactly it takes place before Morrowind, but I think they said that this is taking place about 800 years before Oblivion, and Oblivion was very shortly in the timeline after Morrowind. So I would say anywhere from 700 to 800 years. Let's just span that gap there and say that ESO takes place that long before Morrowind. So yeah, everyone that you experience in Morrowind and all the Morrowind cities, such as Mournhold, in the game Morrowind, in the expansion pack Tribunal, specifically for Mournhold, those NPCs and those people living in that time period are going to be, they won't be alive at the time of Elder Scrolls Online, because it's in the past, basically. It takes place at an earlier date. Now, one person that I do know will be in the game, and this has been publicly released information, is Almalexia, one of the living gods in the Tribunal. She is going to be a part of the Ebonheart Pact, which I'm excited about, because the Tribunal was something that I love that storyline within Morrowind and that expansion as well. So Almalexia, I'm assuming Satha Sil, as well as Vivec will also be in the game. I think the only one I've heard of confirmed at this point, or at least talked about publicly, has been Almalexia. That'll be awesome. I think that'll be cool. So in terms of an NPC there, yes, that will be the same. But in terms of just general store owners and shop owners and NPCs No, those will probably be totally different. All right, and the last question actually comes from Facebook. So one of you guys on Facebook hit me up, which is perfect. You use the hashtag ESO show, because you can use hashtags on Facebook now, believe it or not. This one comes from Toby Thompson, who says, what will you be using more often? A bow, sword and shield, sword and magic, etc. I think traditionally I like to stick to sort of sword and magic. That's sort of what's comfortable to me. But when I sit down and play ESO this coming spring when it comes out, I'm definitely gonna be trying new things. I wanna try out and really play for a while with a bow, which is something I really haven't really done as much in an Elder Scrolls game. I would love to maybe even play with a shield, which is something I don't do that often either. You know, in Skyrim I played a lot as what I just sort of called a spell sword, where I wielded a one-handed sword and shot spells and casted spells with my other hand. So, and that's really fun. Like, that never gets old for me. It's really fun. But definitely looking forward to the Elder Scrolls Online, and there's definitely some ways that I'd like to play that I haven't normally played before. I want to sort of broaden my horizons, I guess. So that should be a lot of fun. All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much for sending in your questions and for watching this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you tweet and Facebook me your questions for next week using the hashtag ESO show. And if you tweet a question to the Elder Scrolls Online, also make sure to include hashtag Swifter, so that if I choose that question, I knew it came from one of my awesome viewers of this show. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed, and I will see you guys next week. Peace.